Good Gab, sponsored by Skillskin, a nonprofit organization empowering individuals with disabilities through employment. Cyndi Donahue, Director of Leadership Training and Development at Gonzaga School of Leadership. Cyndi, thanks for joining us today.
I'm so happy to be here.
What a great day it is today.
It is a great day because I'm here with you.
I know, my friend Cyndi, what up?
I'm so excited to get to have this conversation with you.
Heck yeah, well, you're everywhere, and I love that about you. You're just connected to the community in so many ways. And, I know our listeners, we just want to know what's going on. What's happening in the world of Cyndi Donahue?
Today I'm working at Gonzaga School of Leadership Studies as the Director of Leadership Training and Development. So that's a big part.
We just sent one of our guys through the leadership certificate.
You did?
So, yeah, his name is John Booz. He said it was an excellent program. And, yeah, he said it was awesome.
Which certificate did he do? Do you know?
Servant leadership.
Yep. So we have a 9-month program, foundational leadership. So these are all non-degree programs, certificate programs. There's an intensive weekend called an authentic leadership program. And then there's specialty things. Healthcare leadership is really popular, right? Given our industry here in Spokane. Women's leadership, servant leadership. There's just so many options depending on where people want to grow and what they want to focus on.
Yeah. So what does that mean to you? Like, how are you getting that word out?
Well, that's what I try and do. So the certificates are actually operated by our Certificate for Life Center for Lifelong Learning. But they're developed through the School of Leadership Studies. So we're one of very few leadership schools in the U.S. and one of the best. And so we have, on the academic side, we have our 2 master's degree programs, so organizational leadership and then communication and leadership, and then the non-degree options. And then pretty soon we're actually going to come out with something in between. There's going to be graduate level certificate programs as well through the communication and leadership.
Well, that sounds interesting. So who are the people that should be looking at these programs to, either polish their resume or learn more?
Well, I'm like you, right? In my opinion, everyone is a leader, right? We can sit around and define what is leadership, but it's a process where you are able to influence people to achieve a common goal. So everyone can be a leader, which means you have to understand yourself, grow your skills, and then decide how you want to apply those either in your organization, in your community, in your industry. So it's really just a matter of deciding where you want to go and how you want to grow yourself and understand yourself, and then how to apply that with your team.
Okay, so let's just take organizations like Skillskin, right? We have a number of different business lines. We have, a lot of supervisors, managers, site managers, so just a lot of different people. Like, how would our business engage with, the School of Leadership?
Yeah, so as we were talking about before we started, is that my role is really not on the academic side, and it's not really on the certificate side, although I talk about those because they're opportunities for everyone to grow themselves. But my role as the Director of Leadership Training and Development is to operate our consultants firm. And most people say, what?
Yeah.
Gonzaga has a leadership consultant company? Yes, we do. And most people don't know that. So as I told you, I'm going to try to unsecret it. That is my job. So what we do...
bring us in. Unsecret us.
And so it depends on the organization. Some companies or organizations, they already have internal organizational development teams.
But not a lot of people, right?
And
that's
not a lot.
Expensive department.
It is, and that's kind of where we come in. So it might be, we have these emerging leaders. We want to help them further their skills, so we'll put them in a certificate program, like you did for the person that went through servant leadership. And then for others, they'll say, we're really siloed, because you talked about all your different departments. Sure. And so it's how do we improve communication across different departments? How do we work effectively as a team? So really we offer through leadership training and development, we have assessments so you can learn your own skills, like Clifton Strengths, where you thrive, right? What are your skills as a leader? And then assessments like emotional intelligence, leadership 360 review. So you have everyone around you kind of identifying, from up,
down.
You
ever done that yourself?
That one I haven't done.
I highly recommend it. That was a humbling experience when I did that. And it was like, oh, okay. People see me.
Yes, that is a question. I just recently did emotional intelligence. So I did the WEI emotional intelligence, and that was a real learning experience. It's a little bit like therapy. And what are your natural reactions to stress? And where can you find more joy? At least for me, that was what I understood, is like finding more joy and understanding how you relate to other people so you can improve that.
So the bag of tricks is deep with the consulting firm. So like any organization like can help in any way. I'm thinking about just us right now. We're going through a merger with an organization called Skookum, and we're building a new team. We have a new region that's being set up, and we're kind of in that, forming phase. And it would be excellent to be able to reach out and, get some help if we needed it.
Yeah,
that's kind of what I'm hearing. That's what y'all do.
Yeah, so we have a lot of things. So we have the assessments, and then we have coaching. So if you have executive coaching or team coaching, or supervisors need coaching, maybe they went from a position of being in a team, and then suddenly they're in managerial and they don't have the skill set, right, to influence or to lead. So then we have coaching, and then we have consulting, so organizational development. So if you wanted to say, how are we organized with this new merger? Are we organized in a way that's going to be effective where everyone thrives, or we achieve our goals? And then we have a lot of what I get mostly is requests for one-offs. So it'll be, we want to do a series of webinars because our culture, everyone's spread out. How do we maintain culture and goal when everyone is in different places? So we'll do a team building interactive webinar.
And you can just build those kind of custom situations for any organization.
Yeah, and it depends. Like we have companies, right now I'm getting a lot of requests for multi-generational communication workshops because you've got Gen Z working with boomers.
Yep.
And then how does that work? I'm even getting requests for neurodiversity. How do we work with neurodiverse individuals? And how
I love hearing that.
Yeah. And it really
so people are caring about that, not just skill skin right now?
People do care.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's,
means we're doing good.
It's communication, it's team building, creating trust. A lot of requests right now for psychological safety to create trust on teams. And so I get requests for different things. And then I basically work as an agency. So we have faculty members and experts and consultants internally in the School of Leadership Studies at Gonzaga. But then I have a roster of specialists and experts and things all over the world, really. So if somebody has something really specific, or they say, we want to do psychological safety, I'll kind of look through who are my consultants that do that and who's available. And so I'm really I've been saying I'm a business matchmaker now.
Yeah, I see it. That's incredible.
But
how long has this been going on?
It's been going on for 15 years at Gonzaga School of Leadership Studies, but it's been really organic and based on relationship. And so I'm trying to unsecret it. So Skillskin or whoever says, wow, that's something that we need. We just met with a nonprofit yesterday, and they want some board retreat facilitation, and they have a couple emerging leaders that they want to go through a certificate program. So it really is just how do you look at your organization? Is everyone thriving? Is there trust? When we come up against challenges, are we ready for those? Can we go past those? Are all voices being heard? I mean, diversity and inclusivity is a huge part of what we do as well.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have all of those voices, then you're not getting all of the access to all the potential solutions on your team.
You were made for this.
Well,
I remember first meeting you. I walked into our room. It was at the Spokane Club, and I'd gotten invited to some sort of I don't know what it was. It was some leadership lunch. And you had just you'd come in, you're talking about the Spokane Club. I was like, who is this person? It was you were a natural salesperson. And that matchmaker of people, you're like, hey, who can help? And you were just oh yeah. And then we got to be in Leadership Spokane together. I got to see more of that from you. It's you're really, really talented.
Oh, you're very kind. I think it's a process of growth, right? It's a process of learning. I didn't even know leadership was a thing. I've had this long, winding, crazy road of career, mostly in marketing, and sales actually isn't my thing. I don't get that thrill of the close. It makes me uncomfortable. I'm like a lot of women. I'm not great at negotiating, but I do love connecting people. So when I read Simon Sinek's Start With Why, that really did it for me. And I thought, what is my personal why? Not, related to the organization I was in. And so once I decided my personal, what's yours, by the way? Before I share mine, I want to know yours.
My personal why is relationships. That is why I get up in the morning, is to, have deep connected relationships to, I think that's the way to better the world.
Yep. Agreed.
So that's me.
Mine is to connect people with themselves and others for the betterment of my community. And so how do you do that? You connect people. Nothing thrills me more than when I am in a room and two amazing people hadn't met yet. I'm like, my mind is blown. I get to introduce two incredible people, and you never know what will come of that.
That's true. All right. I'm letting the cat out of the bag, everybody. So you want to know Steve McBride? This is it right here. So if I want to be really honest and true, my why is to be like a mirror to reflect someone's best self back to them. And that's really why I'm here. And I rarely say that out loud. So damn it, Cyndi, just pulling it out.
Now I'm
So-
all teary. No, that's the best why, right? To be the mirror to help people grow and be who they are.
Yeah, like whatever they want to be.
But
It's
I
just
would say
something-
your skill, though, is you really see people for who they are. I think a lot of people make assumptions or have expectations of others. And I think in order to be a really good mirror, you have to really be open to seeing people as they are and seeing their gifts and what they can contribute. And I think a lot of people don't have the confidence to help others rise that way.
Well, thanks for seeing me. And I love people. That's what keeps me going.
Me too.
Yeah.
I agree. I do love people.
So how did you get to Spokane?
So I had been working in California. Don't tell anyone. I came from
Yeah,
California.
right.
But it was 17 years ago, and I was 7.
Oh, this is home now.
I was 7 months pregnant. I knew no one, and my choices were to live in San Francisco and never see my unborn child because I had a full-time serious job, or move to Spokane, as I knew it then, where it snowed. And so I made that choice basically to be a mom. And so I was a stay-at-home mom for a few years, and then due to life circumstances, divorce and whatever, I had to go back into working. And so I decided to go to Spokane Club. That was how I ended up there because I could have a part-time job and they have great childcare.
Perfect. Yeah, we're like, all right, this matches.
It matched out perfectly. And then through that opportunity, there's so many people in that place that are so kind and so generous of heart. And that's really how I see the Spokane community. People here are just so generous of spirit. Right. So
That's true.
accepting. And so that was kind of how it started. And then I really didn't get out into the community until I became the membership director there. And I started saying, well, people don't just knock on the door. You actually have to go out there. And I thought that was important. And so I started going to different mixers and meeting, people from Greater Spokane Inc. and Downtown Spokane Partnership and all these organizations. I'm like, wow, people are doing amazing things here.
So you started getting excited about the community.
Yes, and I started meeting people like you, right, and forming connections. And then an opportunity opened up to work with Tom Simpson at Ignite Northwest. And I called him, I emailed him, and I walked over there and put my resume on his desk.
You're like, I want to be here.
I stalked him. Yes, I was so excited about that opportunity because it was economic development. It was creating
Pure
community.
economic development.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it was about creating community and bringing people together and for the betterment of our community and all the innovation that was happening. And he just has so much energy. And it was just such a pleasure to work with him for almost 4 years. And then I made that weird departure.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, any insight onto the Spokane community? Like, are we embracing that startup culture? Are we, funding it? Like,
Yes, we're definitely funding it. There's quite a bit of funding for entrepreneurs here. And I think that with the influx of people that came during COVID from Seattle and Portland and Chicago and everywhere else, I think it was hard for some people that have been here forever to have this influx of people. But I think at this point, we've integrated people really well. And I think we appreciate the talents and the jobs and all of the things that come along with that, where we are.
I appreciate the good restaurants that came with that.
Right.
growth.
Me too. But that expansion of opportunity came with all of those people. And so the technology sector here is amazing. I mean, there's Launchpad in the Northwest. I help them with their Executive Connection Leadership Series, Bill Clevis, and I still get to work with Tom a little bit. And so growing jobs, right? That it's an awesome opportunity to grow jobs through technology, and also obviously having 2 medical schools here is
Amazing. I know there used to be one in the state, and now there's 2 right here in Spokane. It's so great.
We
I
have
love this town.
more medical students now than Seattle.
That seems so strange and awesome.
Agreed.
Police Chief Craig Meidl, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, well, it's good to hear, what's going on in the police department and all the work you all are doing right now. And, what's happening in community policing these days?
Yeah, wow, where to start with that. So, one of the things we tell our officers when we hire them is community policing isn't just the job of a special unit. It's every officer's job to engage with the community. So we really tell them, we want you getting out of your cars when you can. We tend to be a call-driven agency, but when you're not on calls, we want you getting out of the car, talking to people, spend extra time on that call, And again, officers, when they log on, there's a screen full of calls. But unless there's a priority, something in progress, we would prefer spend an extra couple minutes with that victim. Talk to them, if they've been burglarized or anything like that, go through their house, give them some pointers. Maybe you can help them, give them some advice of what can the the city do for them to help them as well? Things they just may not just be aware of.
Well, that makes sense. You know, that happened with my parents. Like, this is maybe a decade ago now, but like they had a burglary at their house, but the officers that came and talked to them, they spent some extra time. And I remember my mom commenting on that. She's like, I just felt like safer. She felt like taken care of.
Good.
And that was it was a good experience and a terrible experience time, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, when I was growing up, I've been burglarized, and you just feel so violated, you know. And one of the things, too, we tell our officers is, you know, after someone's been, unfortunately, the victim of something, quite often you are the first person they talk to after that. You know, and what we do can either help them move on and heal and move forward, or can send them further spiraling into darkness. So spend some extra time with them. And I'm glad to hear that they're out there doing that.
It totally happened. Yep. Yeah, that's one of those shining moments that my mom talks about during that, for sure.
Good.
Well, I know there's just so much going on in Spokane, and I know the last time, you know, I saw you was kind of a Leadership Spokane event, and we were, I think you were talking about kind of a new initiative a couple years ago when some mental health professionals were kind of pairing up with officers. I thought that was so cool. And we keep reading about, like, it's working, right? Is that still holding true?
It is. So we were one of the first cities in the state to receive a grant through the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs, which, of course, they funneled that through the state legislators. And it was a program where we co-deployed a police officer with a mental health service provider in the car. They rode together every single day. So we were able to get that off the ground through a grant. And that has been wildly successful. And one of the things that we have learned over the years is that our officers on patrol now are constantly calling for them. They're asking, is that unit available to come and respond to this call? And they will literally, so their job is to not just go there and put a Band-Aid on it. Because our officers, you know, they're call driven.
Sure.
Go to the call, handle the call, because there's a screen full of victims
there's
waiting.
more to come.
Absolutely. And so what we wanted our co-deployed team to do is don't just put a Band-Aid on it. Spend the time necessary to line them up with resources. And so the demand has just absolutely skyrocketed. And it's a partnership with the Sheriff's Office, Spokane Valley. So if we have Spokane police officers working that day, they will go anywhere in the county they're needed. If they have Spokane County Sheriff's deputies riding with a mental health professional, they will go anywhere in the county.
So you have this agreement. Everyone's going to help each other.
Absolutely. And
Awesome.
Working together with all these organizations has just been a force multiplier. It's allowed us to work with those units for longer hours and later into the evening as well. It's been very successful.
So we figured out, like, how as a region to, like, keep this funded and integrate this kind of policing.
We have. So we still have we renewed the grant, and
Nice.
that is good through the middle of next year. But because of the success, even if that grant money disappears, we all acknowledge we have to keep this program running. So it's here to stay.
Cool. Oh, I love hearing that. It's just so neat. Well, there's so much cooperation, it seems like, between, you know, the region. I got to see that recently. I was part of, you know, the fires out in Medical Lake, and we were out on Clear Lake there, and just saw some of your officers. Just everyone was fitting in where they needed to. I bet it was a wild couple days, because it wasn't just out there. It was up north too, right?
It absolutely was. And so it's interesting. Spokane is just one of the most interesting places in the nation. You know, we get a lot of folks that move away from Spokane and then they come back. And my understanding too is when it comes to even military, like Fairchild, we are one of the top 3 locations in the nation where when people retire from the military, they retire here. We have something special in Spokane. And that also applies to our law enforcement. We work very well together. We support each other. There's times where we may not have enough resources. We need their help. They may not have enough resources. We help them. We work together we have a couple different units where we work together. We share property crimes facility, records, forensic staff that go out to crime scenes. So there's a lot of co-deployed teams or teams where we will do this for you, you do that for us. And it's just something you almost have that small town feel here while we're growing significantly every year.
And I love hearing that. We do hear a lot of, that cooperation. It's kind of like a thread with many different industries here in Spokane. And you're right, a lot of our guests are actually retired military that end up staying here. Well, what's your story? Why Spokane?
Okay, so I will try to keep it short. It's actually a long story, but I will keep it short. So
We're all ears.
All right. So I'm an Air Force brat, speaking of
Okay.
military. My dad was in the Air Force. Born in California, lived there when until I was about 5. And then actually my folks divorced when I was 4. So my dad went to Michigan. So at 5, I moved to Michigan with my dad. And then he was deployed there. And then from Michigan, moved to Illinois. So I lived in Michigan from 5 to 8, lived in Illinois from 8 to 13. Unfortunately, my dad passed when I was 13. So I moved back to Seattle at 13 to live with my mom. And then I knew I was going to go to college, but I didn't want to go to college on the west side, right? I'm an introvert, so too many people, right? Way too many people.
Lots.
So I actually went to college at Central Washington University. Absolutely.
In the Berg.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
all right.
Wow, go Wildcats. And so when I first went there my first year, there's a lot of scrub, deserty, semi-arid land around there, and I wasn't used to that. I'm like, man, this place is like a desert.
Yeah,
But
where's the green?
Yes, exactly. And then so after that first year, though, I just fell in love with it. And then started applying. I knew I wanted to be a police officer ever since I was 4. Well, I wanted to do one of two things, police officer or military. So I joined the Marine Corps Reserves when I was 17, went to boot camp down in MCRD, which is Marine Corps Receiving Depot in California, which was really weird. Going to boot camp when you're 17, you're this little scrawny kid, and you're with all these other men. That was probably my most largest growth spurt in my life.
Yeah, you grew up real fast in that month, right?
I did. So did 4 years of college. Bravo Company in Yakima. We were activated for Desert Shield, Desert Storm. So went over there for about 5 months. And when I got back, turned 21, I just started applying everywhere. I wanted to be a police officer. So Spokane at that time had a 2-year list. They only tested once every 2 years, which now blows my mind. We test at least every quarter.
Because it's just they had enough officers back then.
Yes, they did. So
it was hard to get into this police department.
absolutely. An example is I tested, one of the tests I took was Pierce County. And they had something like 1,600 people sign up for 2 positions.
Oh, man.
And I remember thinking, why am I even wasting my time? But I just remember thinking as well, the answer is always no if you don't try. So I might as well try. But Spokane was the first department I tested for. And it took them probably a year or so till my name popped up on the list. Went through the process. They hired me, and I just fell in love with the place. But you know what? An interesting story when I was in Ellensburg. So when you're getting on I-90, you basically turn right to go to Seattle, or you can go left. And at the time, I remember seeing Spokane.
Yeah, what's this place?
Yeah, what is this, a village? I mean, do they have electricity? Do they have running water there? I didn't even know how to
further into the desert.
Yeah.
Green's here to the right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Desert
absolutely.
left.
And so one day when I was testing, I'm like, okay, I'm going to take a left to Spokane. And I remember the day I tested, I was standing on the parking garage downtown, looking out over the city. And it was just almost one of those surreal moments where it's like, I may end up being a police officer here. So it was just really a mind trip for me.
Oh, that was awesome. So like the parkade,
Yes.
like up there, yeah. So you're seeing the courthouse and just the whole city.
Yeah, and I realized this isn't a village. They actually do have running water, electricity, and more than one stoplight. So that was the beginning of my journey here. Went through the academy, started January of '94, and fell in love with the place. Absolutely loved this area.
You were so close to 30 years.
Yes, next
Holy
January,
moly.
30 years. I know I only look 65.
Yeah,
but
looking good, man. Yeah. So yeah, that's a heck of a career. So you started as a what kind of officer?
So everyone starts out initially as a patrol officer. So did patrol, and then decided, you know what? There's a couple different things. I wanted to do police work, but I wanted to look at it from a different angle, like being a detective. So you're still doing police work, but you're processing cases, you're putting together packets, you're working with judges, which was really cool. At that time, judges were like on this pedestal that you never saw them, and like, do they even really exist? So I did that for about 6 months, but had also taken the sergeant's test, so I made sergeant. And then from there, just went, sergeant to lieutenant to, where did I go from lieutenant to major? Chief Kirkpatrick at that time promoted me from a lieutenant. I was in internal affairs. To a major, and then we had the new chief came in, Chief Straub came in, he made me his assistant chief, and then just different styles. We had different styles, so I rolled back to lieutenant, and then within a year made it to captain, and then again to assistant chief. So I went up.
So that leadership has been a part of your story, though, from really since the beginning.
It really has been. Yeah, it really has been, and I'm fascinated by leadership because there has to be 5 billion books out there on leadership.
Sure.
And most of them have good nuggets. But, when the best way for me to learn is by watching other people. What worked for them?
That's me too.
Yeah, and what didn't work for them. And probably one of the best leadership experiences I had is when I first made sergeant. Being blunt, you have this insecurity because as an officer, I'm only in charge of myself.
Right.
As a sergeant, I volunteered for that position. Now I'm in charge of 8 or 9 other people, and I'm responsible for them. And so I remember looking at one sergeant at the time, and he was, a man's man. And when he spoke, people listened. People didn't
That
challenge
authority.
him. Yes,
Yeah.
everything, how he projected himself, how he spoke. And so I'm like, I'm going to be like him. So for about 2 weeks, I tried to be like him, and I failed miserably. So the most
You're finding your own self.
100%. And so one of the things I tell people now is be authentic. You can't be someone you're not. Now, that doesn't mean you can't take different pieces from others and try to incorporate them as yourself, but don't try to be someone else. I was miserable for 2 weeks that I was trying to be someone I wasn't. My team was miserable. They're looking at me like, who are you? And so for me, that was probably one of the most profound leadership lessons.
You're quick at learning lessons because it took me some years to figure out authenticity just until I came to Skillskin. Like I was a salesperson forever, and like authenticity was a big lesson that I learned at Skillskin. And just to, that's how I wanted to show up as a leader, be in service to others. And man, just things started clicking after that.
They absolutely do. Yeah, it's people enjoy working with you more. Your family life is better, and you're happier because you're not trying to be something you're not.
This is the Chief Executive Officer of the YWCA. This is Jeanette Hauck. Jeanette, welcome.
Hi, Steve. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you.
This is my first podcast.
What?
Yeah.
Well, it's happening.
I know.
I know, it's awesome. Well, I know we get to be here, the beautiful Spokane Library and all this equipment. We've been here for over a year now.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
I know, it's been a lot of fun, and we were the very first people in the studio.
Really?
Yeah, so our executive producer, Dana Devine, found the space. She's like, let's get this thing kicked off. And we were here, and we just hit that 1-year anniversary.
I love that. The YWCA collaborated with MIA, Mejeras in Action, and also Lutheran Community Services. We did a candidate forum
Okay.
upstairs here during
Nice.
the last election season. So that was fun.
So right outside this door then, right?
Exactly.
Right on. What a cool space.
Yeah. So it's been great.
What inspired that? Like, why did the Y want to, get involved and pull it together?
Well, we worked really closely with those two organizations so that we could talk to individuals who were being elected that had some sort of impact on victim services. So in particular, judges,
Yeah, big one.
people in the court system. So it was just an opportunity for them to really share about their knowledge of domestic violence and the impact that the courts and the systems have on their ability to move through their trauma successfully.
Well, and I bet that was received really well by the community because you're like, this is important stuff. Gotta
It
figure
was.
It out.
It was. We had probably, I want to tell you, about 120 people.
Nice.
So it was a big group. They were very interested in what the candidates had to say, and we just had the opportunity to facilitate. So
It's incredible. We just had Lutheran Community Services as a guest, the new executive director there, and she blew my mind. Like, I had known a little bit about the organization, but I did not know the depths of, how they're helping our community and the kids here and, women, suffering. And
well, Steve, let me blow your mind too.
I'm ready.
Okay. Because there's a lot going on at the YWCA Spokane.
Well, tell us more.
Well, first of all, if you haven't heard, we're 120 years old this year.
120? Yeah.
120.
Right.
It's a big deal. Yeah, it's been really great. So we've been celebrating our birthday all year long.
Here in Spokane, 120?
120 years.
Wow, so you've been around since the beginning of Spokane.
Right.
Wow.
Right. So in 1903, we were meeting women at the train station, and a lot of them were being lured here, saying that they were going to have jobs, and they really were going to be sold into the sex trade.
Shit.
And so, exactly.
Yeah, so the mining and all that.
Exactly.
So the need was immediate.
The need was immediate, so that gave us the opportunity to work with those women to help them find housing and education. And today, we're still doing the same thing.
Wow, you think that, humanity would evolve, and we do, but some things we're just still terrible at.
Some things
Humans
don't.
are bad to each other sometimes.
Yes. And in the scenario of domestic violence, I can tell you in our community, there is a really high rate of some very violent behavior in intimate partner relationships.
So I heard that in the Leadership Spokane class I was a part of. I don't remember who came and talked to us, but they said that like the rate of domestic violence in Spokane County, Eastern Washington, was like really high compared to the national average.
It is really high compared to the national average. So we're like 1 in 4 women will experience domestic violence in their lifetime. So that's a really big number. When you look at the
It's
actual,
hard to even start
Yeah.
to comprehend that.
yeah. So
Think about just all my friends, right? And just know that translates to everyone.
right. So it's a big number. One of the things that we track is how that compares to other counties throughout the state of Washington, and you'd be amazed. I mean, we have one of the highest rates of domestic violence in the state.
Can we attribute that to anything, or is just a statistic that we can work on getting a lot lower?
You know, I think part of it is our level of economic poverty that we have in this community. I think that that's part of it. So when you think about prevention, let's think about poverty. I think it also has to do with report rates. So, I mean, we're good at data, and so we're trying to gather that data
So
and
it could
report
be
it
a
out.
hidden problem in other communities.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, so how does the YWCA, engage with this community?
Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about what we do in our domestic violence services. And then again, I'm going to really surprise you and tell you about some more things that we're out there doing.
We're glad you're here, Jeanette. Yeah, we got to get some awareness.
I know, we do. We really do. So as you know, obviously we've been around 120 years. And one of the things that we do in Spokane is that we have a domestic violence safe shelter where when individuals call our 24-hour helpline, get your phone out, make a contact. If you've already done it, thank you. But if you haven't, our helpline number is 509-326-2255. Okay?
So who would call this? So they're in a situation, like help us understand who should hit send.
Right. So this is an individual or a friend or a family member that's seeing a situation that just seems like the power and control dynamic is lopsided. Okay? So this is an individual who may be physically abused. This may also be somebody who is emotionally abused. So think of that as someone who says, no, you can't go see your friends. That's someone who says, you can't spend the money on that. Don't leave the house. So think about COVID. They couldn't leave the house. So a lot of people were trapped in their homes with their perpetrators during COVID. So we've got our 24-hour helpline, one of the first places that you can call. We have this safe shelter. It has 11 individual rooms. So it's not like a big open cot kind of filled place.
You have a really safe space. It's your room.
It's your room. You have your own TV. Most of the rooms have their own bathroom. You've got a little mini fridge. You've got a microwave. We have advocates who are staffed at the shelter.
Supports start to happen from day one.
Supports.
Hour one.
Hour one.
That's awesome.
Yeah, from the moment they step in the door, they are empowered to choose. So throughout whatever relationship they've been in, it's been power and control. And now for probably the first time in a long time, they have control back and they get the power to choose. So we use that empowerment model throughout all of our programming. Okay, so we have people in the safe shelter. We have advocates that can help people who maybe they don't need safe shelter. They can go stay with a friend or a family member, and they'll come to our offices and they'll do safety planning. We'll talk more about the power and control wheel and what that means and how they can really move to a healthy relationship, however they choose. We'll help them get a confidential address.
What you need, right? To like, maybe you need to go get a job. You got to, all the things.
All the things. So that's one of the services they can access. And then we also have legal advocates. So sometimes what happens is the night after an event, our legal advocates know who has been part of a domestic violence situation. They can reach out to those victims and see if they need any supports. So legal advocates aren't giving legal advice, but they tell them about how the system works.
Which is so important, right? Because it's scary.
It's very scary and confusing. Where do you go? Is it this building over there or is it that building? Which court is it? What time is it? What can I do? What can I say? What can I not say? You know, those are some of the things that the legal advocates can help them with. And
so kind of walking alongside people as they go through the process.
Exactly. Now, while they can't give them legal advice on a protection order, we have 2 attorneys, a paralegal, and a triple LT, which is almost like an attorney, and our director.
This?
Oh, well, let me tell you. Hello, please go to our website, www.ywcaspokane.org, and please click on the donate button. But
Because this is community funded.
it is community funded. But also know that we get a lot of support for our programming from government grants. So the city of Spokane, the county of Spokane, the state of Washington, and the federal government. We have probably 75 to 80% of our funding comes from government grants.
Because the need is so high.
Because the need is so high. Exactly.
We were, Skillskin, we were bidding on cleaning the main building downtown.
Yes.
This is a few years ago. Probably 6 years ago, before your time. And one thing that kind of blew my mind was the court inside the building.
Yes.
I was like, this is incredible. Okay, so that we can be safe, we can be outside like that traditional system a little bit. Maybe tell us a little bit more about that.
Okay, so let me tell you about the Family Justice Center. So again, that's where we collaborate with city and county prosecutors, the Sheriff's Department, and Spokane Police Department for those individuals on those teams that are working on the domestic violence cases. So if there's someone who has a recent incident and they're involved with law enforcement and they want to be able to talk to law enforcement, they can come to our building.
In a very safe place.
In a safe place, in a room that is trauma-informed. The lights are soft. There's a couch. You know, it's one of those places where when you've been through significant trauma and you have that moment to actually kind of sit down, relax, feel safe, and tell your story, and hopefully only have to tell your story once and not over and over again and be re-traumatized. Yeah. So, the Family Justice Center is just like an amazing spot for us to be able to have in our building.
Well, I remember just being surprised and then saying, oh, this makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Also, I thought one of the coolest things, do you still have it, the store?
So
Where you can walk in and get clothing? And,
yes. So our sister's closet.
yeah.
So again, that's one of the resources that survivors, when they're at the shelter, sometimes they leave with nothing.
Right? Because you got to get out of a situation.
They leave with nothing. And so they can come over to our sister's closet and walk through our free boutique. And they have someone there who can help them try on clothes, find out what their need is, and then make sure that they've got clothes for, if they need to go to court, if they're getting ready to go to work, all of those things. So our
The
sister's
dignity
closet.
and support of that I loved it.
Yeah.
That, there was someone there that was going to help
Yes.
walk through that. Yeah. So that seems there's a little theme here at YWCA. There's a lot of walking with people.
There is a lot of walking with people.
Is that part of the trauma-informed model?
It certainly is. We say we come alongside because remember, we're not going to tell people what to do. Yeah. We're going to give them options, resources, ideas, opportunities, but they get to choose.
I love that.
Really is their choice.
You do that in the disability space too. It's all about choice and opportunity.